Hey, everybody, welcome back. This is the Good Life Bookstore, another rendition of Seen and Spoken. And I'm one of your favorite authors, Goodlife Russ, and I'm going to be your host today. And I am accompanied by Miss Priscilla Baldwin. How are you doing, Miss Priscilla?
Doing great. And yourself?
I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. I don't think enough people ask. I appreciate that. So we brought you here today to not just talk about your books, not talk about the journey of writing, but also get to know you as a person. So if you don't mind, can you tell people a little bit about your background and who you are?
I'm Priscilla Baldwin. I am a cognitive life coach. I've also worked in the mental health field for 26 years. I own my own business, Life Care Companions of Northwest Florida, former CEO of that. And it was a homemaker companion service in Northwest Florida. And we worked with autism, we worked with special needs, we worked with the elderly and dementia patients.
Wow, so you've done it all. I love to hear that you are so well versed because everyone needs representation. Everyone needs someone who's checking in on them. So I love that. So let's get started with the beginning. This is something I saw the authors. So as you were coming up, can you give us a little insight on how books showed up in your life? Did you have a library at home? Did you read at school? What was your relationship like with reading?
Books were very important in our home. I had older parents, so
Okay.
I from the era when the encyclopedia guy came to your door, and so my parents bought me a set of encyclopedias because um, the education was so important. Because my
Mhm.
parents were older. My dad was born in 1909, so
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
My mom was born in 1916. So, and I was born in 62. So, when I say older, I mean older parents, but that was their investment in me to get the encyclopedias, And so, and a lot of homes during that time had encyclopedias. A lot of people didn't because there was no such thing as the internet during that time. We had to do the physical work. We had to get the book, read it, do the essays and all of that. So that was really pushed very much so in me growing up.
So did that stay consistent in your life? You pretty avid reader now?
Yes, I'm a very avid reader, right? My goal when I finally retire is to
Mhm.
read The Trail of Tears. So I'm
Ooh,
interested with that.
okay.
And that book is huge. So it'll
Yeah.
take me probably a year to get through it. So
Oh, that's remarkable. So, what was your connection like when it pertained to writing? Did writing go hand in hand with reading, or was that a separate journey?
that was a separate journey because I remember as a child saying, because I read detective magazines, and my first job was working at a library. So
Ooh,
yeah, so it was very interesting. As a child, I wanted to write a book. I didn't write
Mhm.
the first book until 2023.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
That was similar for me too. Writing was therapeutic. I did a lot of journaling. I wrote down my feelings. I wrote down, should I do A? Should I do B? Like, writing always showed up in my life, but I'm the same. I just recently started releasing books. It felt kind of like a rite of passage, like, okay, now I'm ready. Now I have something to say. I know how I want to say it. You can see the book. So, okay. So, can you tell us a little bit about your first book?
my first book is Caregiving 101, huh? And it's for the novice, for people that are just entering into the healthcare field. And it's basically, it merges two, both sides of my life, my personal side of my life and my professional side. Some of the stories in the book is about my dad. My dad had dementia. And
Okay.
so we go through the different phases, and we help people understand the different things that, that the gatekeepers keep you from, you know.
Hmm.
So I had to learn a lot of things about caregiving. I had owned my business in 2003, but it was on the front end. It was the business aspect. I was going into the home for teachers, and because they had teacher parents conference, I would
Hmm.
go into their homes and take care of their spouses or their parents while they could do the teacher parent conference. And it would be like giving them a nutritious meal, or being a companion, things of that nature, so that they could do what they needed to do. So when my dad developed dementia, it first started out with him having issues with his blood. When we began that road to not even knowing what an oncologist was,
Hmm.
we didn't know what that was. We didn't know the mechanics of the ins and outs of the healthcare system.
Hmm.
So we talk about that. We talk about how the roles change when you're taking care of someone, right?
Hmm.
Because within the roles of the family, when you have a loved one and you're stepping up to be that caregiver, the lens that that person sees you in, because for my dad, I'm his daughter,
Hmm.
so I'm going to always be his daughter. I think I was 40 something at that time, but I'm going to always be his little girl. So that lens didn't change. You know,
Hmm.
he's the parent, I'm the child. No matter how old you get,
Right.
you're always the child. And so from that lens, you have to be very careful how you navigate that, because anything
Hmm.
that you do, it has to be done with dignity and respect. So I had to learn how to navigate that and still be in charge of what I needed to be in charge of, like being having the dual proxy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And making those health choices, because I'm the only child for my parents. So if you have brothers and sisters that are able to help you make the decisions that need to be made for your parents, do that. But if you are an only child, those decisions lay very heavy on you, because you're the one that has to make those decisions, and there's nobody to share that with, right? So
Hmm.
we have to be mindful of the lens of how people see us, right? Even if you're
Hmm.
taking care of your brother or your sister, they're still seeing you in that lens that you're the brother, you're the sister,
Right.
So we have to navigate that and still give them what they need to make sure that we're advocating for them, in the medical field, because people have a tendency to overlook the person that they're caring for. And even
Hmm.
as we spoke, we have to continue to see the essence of the person, right? Because that's that person that you love, that you care for, and we have to look at them and not the diagnosis of whatever that looks like. We have to look at the individual.
Hmm. I agree. So we had a really good prompt on the mental health panel that I definitely want to ask you.
Okay.
So the question is, how do you advocate for your own peace working in mental health and
You
boundaries, peace and boundaries?
boundaries are very important, right?
Hmm.
Because you have to establish the boundaries that you feel comfortable with. Because sometimes we have boundaries, but we won't enforce those boundaries because we
Hmm.
are so, I think we're so concerned about what other people would think because
Hmm.
of the boundaries that we have laid out. Because we don't want to offend anybody, because, we don't want to make anybody else uncomfortable with the boundaries that we've set for ourselves. Because a lot of times we will set the boundaries, but depending on who the person is, we'll relax the boundaries.
Hmm.
You see what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
we have to be consistent in the boundaries that we set. No matter who that individual is, the boundary is the boundary, you know. So we can't have our pick and chooses when we put the boundary up, when we take it down. It has to be consistent, and that helps you to be consistent in your thought process of what makes you comfortable, what you can and cannot do, what your non-negotiables are, and stick with it. Don't be wishy-washy with your boundaries, because your mental health is very important.
Hmm.
Your mental health, because you cannot pour from an empty cup.
Hmm.
We have to have people in our lives to replenish us, restore us, refresh us. Because if not, we're no earthly good. We have to be poured into, because we pour out consistently.
That's true. You don't want to get caught empty, and you need everything you had in reserve.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you talked a little bit about caregiving and role reversal. Um, can you bring some insight? You told me you're in the process of doing a book club.
Yeah. Our book club is for caregiving 101, huh? And
Hmm.
the dates are going to be August the 17th, the 24th, and the 31st at 4 p.m. And
Hmm.
it's going to be on a Zoom. I have all the information on Facebook, and it's Priscilla Baldwin. So if you can go over to my Facebook page, all the registration and all the information is on there. So we're going to really talk about triggers. We're going to talk about role reversal. We're going to talk about a lot of different things that's in the book. And the book can be purchased on Amazon.
Okay. So do you feel this is something that the world needs? Do you feel a strong connection? Because just even speaking with you today, you talk a lot about caregivers. So is that something near and dear to your heart?
It is, because I've done that for 26 years. And I see that sometimes people have a bias about caregiving, that it's just something people do, and they don't put it in the same aspect as other occupations, right? It's just like, oh, you're just a caregiver,
Mm,
right? So it's the bias that's attached to the caregiving, because caregivers do a lot, whether they're a mom with small kids, whether whatever stage that they are in their life, right? If they're empty nesters and they're taking care of their parents, or if they're taking care of their grandkids, whatever factor that you are in life, right? A caregiver has always been a part of your life. When you were a baby, somebody took care of you.
mhm.
When you were growing up, there's a caregiver, whether it was one individual or if it was a village. There has always been caregivers, somebody pouring into you, somebody showing you what needs to be done, somebody teaching you something, right? So that's the importance of caregiving. So we need to drop the jest and
Right.
realize that this individual has a lot of gifts, a lot of things. And like we had spoken before, caregivers, in my opinion, it's in their DNA. Everybody can't be a caregiver. It's not,
Right.
something that everybody can do, right? Because
Mhm.
I'm not a lawyer, can't do it. I don't even think I can. But as far as caregiving, you know, you there are people that are nurturers, there are people that are advocates, there are people, that are guardians. These are different aspects of caregiving. And
Mhm.
when a true caregiver walks into the room, they can command the atmosphere, they can command the environment, right? They
Mhm.
can walk into a situation and it can be chaotic, but by the time they finish and they assess the situation, that chaos has dissipated. It's gone,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of people can't do what caregivers do.
Mhm.
And everybody's not the same caregiver. I can do
Right.
one thing with the gifts that I have, and somebody else is a totally different caregiver and just can come in and just like, how'd you do that? You know, so
Right.
so if we can just take the just and just
Mhm.
realize, this person can do a lot with a lot of people,
Mhm.
that you can come in and the people, because I've been in situations where I've cared for somebody and the family is just chaotic and they can't get the individual to do anything, and I'll be able
Mhm.
to walk in and just say, hey, how you doing, what's going on here, you know
Mhm.
and it just tapers down,
Mhm.
and the family's like, well, how did you do that?
It's a gift.
Right, the gift. So I think caregivers are just wonderful people,
Yes. Yes.
taking time out of their day and using their gifts and their energy to make sure that somebody's comfortable, that they're well cared for, that they're seen, that they're
Mhm.
valued. So, you know,
Yes.
those are the,
Okay.
yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I think that's a good segue. We have a question from the comments, and I think this is advocating for the side of maybe someone who doesn't have a caregiver accessible. So I'll bring it up, but I'll also ask the question. So it says historically, Black women have had a hard time advocating for themselves in the healthcare system. Do you have any tips that can help us navigate this safely?
You're going to have to know who and what you're advocating for that individual, what specifics that needs to be advocated, you know, and what is the protocol? Because if you have an individual that's in the hospital and you want to advocate for them, they have social workers. Always go to the social worker because her resources are vast. She has
Mm,
connections to a lot of agencies, a lot of different things that normally you wouldn't have available to you. So if you have anyone that's in the hospital,
mhm,
use those social workers. Even if you have someone that's in a facility,
mhm,
use those social workers. They also have ombudsmen that will advocate for them if something's going on that you feel like that they're not getting the care that they need. So
mhm.
they are ombudsmen in every state. They should, in
Ooh,
the facility, they should have the name and the phone number of the ombudsman. But utilize the social worker as much as possible because of her resources and because of her reach.
that was great advice. Thank you. I think
Mhm.
that answered it perfectly. Okay, so we'll go back to because there was also something we were talking about off air. You were telling me there are different types of caregiver. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, we're in the middle of, well, I have created a caregiving style assessment, and we're waiting to release that pretty soon. And
Nice.
there's 7 different styles. There is the nurturer, the advocate, the guardian, the over functioning individual. So there's different aspects of how you care for an individual. And like we had said before, that there's not one style of caregiving. There's multiple styles of caregiving, and you can have multiple dominant styles of caregiving. So you're not sticking to one side of how you operate. Because if you are a nurturer, advocate, and a guardian, that helps because your flexibility, because you're
Mm-hmm.
going to nurture, you're going to take care of. And with the advocate, you're going to advocate for your person, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's in the family, whether it's in the healthcare field. You're going to advocate. You're going to make sure that that individual has everything that they need, and you're going to stand up for them. And somebody would say in your family, well, we need to do this. And if that doesn't sit well with you, and you say, no, we need to find another avenue, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to get the result that we need. Just because something is presented, that doesn't mean that you have to hop on it. You know, you need to do your research. You need to make sure that if this person, whether they're competent or not competent, we have a tendency to do the work and advocate for the individual, but we leave the individual out while we're making these decisions. So we have to, talk to them and say, hey, you know, this is what they're presenting. How do you want us to go forward with this? You know, so a lot of people advocate, but we forget about the person that we're advocating for. You know, they should
Mm-hmm.
be included in everything that you do, you know.
I love that you brought up how you see someone through a lens first before you even tried to help them. It's who are they to you?
Right. Yeah. Because that's the
So,
way we look. You know, that's the way we
hmm
see things, right? Because
hmm
as I stated earlier, for my dad, it's always, you're my daughter. You know, it's like, don't get this twisted. You know, I'm the parent and you're still a child. You know, so we had to advocate through that, because when it came time to take the keys away to stop him from driving,
hmm
um, the lights in his eyes went out, because at that time there was, in Pensacola, Florida, there's a memory center. It's
hmm
a memory center of Northwest Florida.
Okay.
It's, and if I had known the resources during that time, it was '06.
Okay.
If I had been able to take him to the facility to let them do the assessment, then he would have been more okay with them telling him, you know, Mr. Crenshaw, we need to take the keys. But instead, it was me taking the keys from him, because I was
Mm.
looking at the safety aspect, and my dad was looking at the independence. I took the independence away
Ooh.
when I took the keys away. But if it had been an organized organization, he would have been able to accept that more readily than his child taking the keys away and saying, no, that no, dad, you know, you can't drive anymore. And I think resentment set in because of it being me and not somebody else, you know, because I'm looking safety. My dad's
Mhm.
saying, I'm independent. I can drive. I can go. I can leave when I want to, come back when I want to. And you're saying, sit right here. I'll take
Mhm.
you where you need to go. I'll do this and I'll do that. So it's the independency. So if you are aware of any resources that will help you not be the villain in the story, you know,
Mm.
let that organization do what you need them to do. And that help.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was powerful. That triggered me as a grandchild because I watched my mom parent my grandmother because my grandparents lived in late to their 90s and they both recently. My grandmother passed in December. So, and she was my last grandparent. But, the grandchild of me is like, no, you can't parent her. You can't tell her what, hold up. So that mean I can tell you what to do? Wait a minute, what's going on? So you saying that definitely, like, Yeah, I was looking at it from my own selfish view, and I didn't think about the lens of who these two people were, and it felt personal to me. Like
Right.
she's grown, she should be able to go outside and feel the sun. Why she got to sit there? You know what I mean? But I don't know her medical stuff either. I'm
Right.
just a grandchild, never seeing y'all interact like this, wondering what's going on in the world.
Right.
Wow, okay. You definitely made that connection.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think a lot of times we do that. We assume we know what's going on before we actually do the research.
Right. Right.
So is that a big part of caretaking too, the research?
It is because you need to know what you're coming into. Because a lot of times we, like you said, we got grandmama, and
Hmm.
everybody may not know the the medical part of what's going on. We only see what we're allowed to see, you know,
Hmm.
because a lot of times when we go, they're not going to tell you that they're sick. You have to be around in order to see things. Because with my dad, one of the things was he was very independent. And
Hmm.
for us, it took a minute to realize dementia, right?
Hmm.
Because he was very methodical in how he spoke so that he wouldn't slip, right?
Yeah.
On some occasions, it was like, he normally wouldn't say that. He
Hmm.
normally wouldn't do that. What is going on? So that make you aware of, okay, I need to pay more attention because we get so involved in our own lives that, by the time that we really catch it, it's already accelerated to another level, right?
Hmm.
So we have to pay attention as they age. Is it
Hmm.
normal aging? Like, you can forget your keys. You walk out and you're like, what is the keys?
Hmm.
And then you go back into the room and then you find them. That's normal aging. It's when you put keys in the refrigerator, which is not normal
Hmm.
aging, right?
Hmm.
So we have to look at, okay, is this normal for this age? Right? Or is
Hmm.
it something out of pocket that is drawing our attention to, she wouldn't do that. She wouldn't say that. Why is she irate? What's going on? So there's a whole lot of factors that we have to look at as your grandparent or as even your parents age,
Hmm.
you know, like, what is going on? What do I need to pay attention to? Has the eating habit changed? Has the sleeping habit changed? Those type of things. What type of medications are they on? Is that, and the other thing is too, if you're caring for your individual, make sure that you do a or have your doctor to do a medical review of the medication. Those things need to be done at least twice a year so that
Hmm.
whatever new medication has been prescribed is not interfering with another medication. So
Hmm.
medication reviews need to be done twice a year because if you're steady adding on and nobody's doing the cross reference of these medications, so you have one medication is doing the work of two, then the doctor has to eliminate one, right?
Right.
So when you have your primary doctor and you have the other doctors as well, let each one do a medical review of all the medications or the ones that they have prescribed because nobody tells us that about the medication.
Hmm. It's funny now that we've had the conversation off air and now we're doing the podcast because something you said that stuck to me off air was the importance of consistency in caregiving. But now I'm seeing it's important too in being cared for. We
Mm-hmm.
both have to be consistent.
Yep, you do. You really do.
So is that a personal battle? Have you felt yourself persevering for someone else's care, or was it okay? I care for myself so much. This is the way I care for me. So I'm just going to care for you the way I care for me. How is that for you?
No, because what I've learned in these years that it has to be person centered approach
Okay.
because everybody's different. Everybody
Okay.
has a different background, right? So when you get to know that individual, you do a person centered approach and give them a person centered experience because it's all about them. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about anything else, right? Because with that, you're still enabling them to have autonomy. You're still
Mm-hmm.
giving them choices. But if it
Okay.
gets to the point where the choices are not, it's kind of off with
Mm-hmm.
the choices that they're making, you can always redirect or distract with
Mm-hmm.
the individual, right? If the choice is okay, A, B, C, and then they're like, nah, let's do E. And you go back and you say, let's redirect, well, maybe if
Mm,
you just look at A, B, and C for right now, then later on, we could do E in a couple of days. Okay. So
mm,
let's concentrate on A, B, C. So,
okay.
so you're redirecting and you're distracting.
Okay.
And those are two things that you can do in the appropriate, setting because you
Mm-hmm.
want to give them the autonomy, but you also want to make sure that the choices that they're making are great choices. But if they throw, a monkey wrench in there, you can say, redirect it to a couple of more days later. We're going to see how this works for you. Okay.
Mm,
Let's start out with this and then we'll graduate to this, you know. So you're still giving them a choice, but you're allowing them to know we're going to concentrate on these, and then we'll revisit this later.
okay.
So it's not taken away, but they still have a choice.
Okay. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
We have another question in the comments. Is that okay?
Yeah. Fine.
Okay. So the comment is, I love her dedication and passion for caregiving, but who cares for the caregiver? Is there a type of self care that needs specifically for roles like this?
Oh, that's cool. Um, the person that cares for the caregiver is you.
Okay.
You have to take time for yourself. And I tell caregivers this all the time that you have to get up a little bit early before your day starts. You have to practice breathing. And there's the four square breathing, right?
Yes.
Four inhales, hold, four holds, and four release. You have to do that breathing because in the middle of caregiving for somebody, you forget to breathe. And you would think that that's a normal, reaction. We're going to breathe. But no, because we get so headlong into what we're doing all day that we really, because we're going from A, B, C, D, E, and there's no breath. We're just in task oriented, right? We're task
Mm,
oriented. We're trying to make sure that we check all the boxes and get everything done. But in the meantime, you're forgetting to breathe. So if you can get up earlier in the day and just take that time to either walk in nature, whether
mhm,
to meditate, whether to read scriptures, whatever that looks like for you, that when you get up in the morning, you're commanding your day, you know,
mhm,
however you start your day off, if you don't even do that for yourself and you get up and you're in a whirlwind and, the day's going by fast, that's how your day's going to go because you didn't take time for yourself and you have to you know, ground yourself and get your thoughts together and say, this is going to be a great day. That no matter what the outside looks like, you've already centered yourself, you've already thought it through, that this is going to be a great day. No matter what comes, no matter what goes. I've centered
mhm.
myself, I made my mind up, that this is going to be a great day. Because as we had spoke earlier, you cannot pour from an empty cup. You know,
Mhm.
it's in the morning time, your cup is full, right?
Mhm.
So if you need empathy, I can give you a little bit. If Susie needs compassion, I can give a little bit. And as my day goes on and on and on, and if I don't position myself to be around people that can pour back into me, to give me compassion, to give me empathy, whatever, at the end of the day, when my shift is over, if my cup is empty and somebody comes and they really, really need me to be there, I got nothing to give you because I didn't have anybody positioned to pour back into me. So
Mhm.
I have an empty cup, right?
Mhm.
So that means that I have to renew, refresh myself, right? So that means that if I have to pull back and take time for myself, if that's just getting a cup of coffee, um, going outside to breathe, or just whatever that looks like for me to renew and refresh myself, I have to do that because remember, I started at the beginning of the day with a full cup,
Mhm.
and I consistently gave out, gave out, gave out. Nobody poured in. Nobody came and said, "Hey, let me take that and do that for you," or "Hey, I'll just call in and check on you. Hey, you know what? I ordered groceries for you. All you got to do is, go and pick them up. Whatever that refreshing looks like, you know.
Mm. I love that. It made me think of the duality of the other side of what you're saying. Stuff my late uncle used to say to me. He's like a big father figure in my life.
Mm,
But I used to ask him because I was a hopeless romantic. So I used to ask him like, why do I keep pouring all of this love into people and it seems like it's not doing anything? And he said, you got to remember, you have a big heart. So most people in the world are only going to take a piece, not because they don't see how big it is. That's all they can carry. And when he told me that, it changed my whole perception. I understood. I'm
mm,
like, okay, I can't pour it into someone more than their capacity.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
So it shows now. I see what you mean about, you are your own caretaker because a lot of it is accountability and it's holding yourself to a certain standard and saying, okay, every other, caretaker works like this. I'm going to do it like this.
Right.
That's what I see in you. I see the passion. I definitely, I love it. I love everyone that's coming contact with that because I believe we need representation. We need people who are going to say, no, that's not all right. Don't
Right.
sign that. Come sit next to me. Put your hands in your pockets. Come sit next to me. I'll talk to you. Don't worry about it. I got you.
Right.
I
Right.
love that. So, is this the center of your writing? Do you also have written works outside of Caretaker, or is this the
This is
focus?
it for now because I have
Okay.
a workbook I'm getting ready to release pretty soon, and it's the ins and outs of what we had spoke about, the triggers, the challenging behaviors. All this is with the workbook, and it comes alongside of caregiving 101 to and it's an expansion. It's the things that people really don't think about unless you're in the mental health field or in caregiving or whatever. But I've made it so that even if you had no healthcare experience or no verbiage of it, anybody would be able to follow it, because we never know when we're going to be a caregiver. We never know
Right.
what that looks like. So
Right.
it's preparing families also that's walking
Mm,
into a situation where they don't, maybe mom took care of brother and he has some issues, maybe he's autistic, maybe he has Down syndrome. Because I've seen people inherit cars, houses, and money, but I've also seen people inherit other people. They didn't have a
Mm.
special needs individual, and that
Mm.
family inherit the person's been there all the time, but mom took care of them, dad took care of them, and they transitioned. But now this individual is your responsibility, and you have no clue because you came to the house, you did Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever, but your interaction was not on a everyday basis, right? You
Mm.
only saw them on special occasions because mom took care of everything.
Mhm.
So you didn't know that this individual had a heart problem or their
Mm.
special needs or they IQ is a 58. You didn't know.
Mhm.
So you have inherited an individual that you have no clue what to do with. And I had an individual like that. He was
Wow.
brother and sisters, they had, and I walked in and this individual, he was a master manipulator. And
Mm.
and the sisters didn't because she inherited him. She only showed
Yeah.
up for the holidays. She did not know what he was capable of. And he played the part really well, you know. And I'm like, you don't see that, but
Yeah.
she didn't. She didn't because there was no connection. The connection
Mm.
was holidays, and I'm in and I'm out, and vacations and stuff like that, but not on an everyday basis, right?
Mm.
So we're not mindful that people inherit people, and you
Right.
inherit situations and circumstances that you're not really, prepared for.
Right.
So
You don't know
you're
what all comes with
learning,
it.
even if your brother's 51 years old, you're learning him for the first time,
Mm.
you know, because everything was taken care of and you didn't have to do it. But now you do. So that flips your world upside down. Whereas
Mhm.
at some point you should have, or maybe your life didn't, you know, mom was taking care of everything. But now you have to deal with the situation, you know, not put them in a facility, but
Mhm.
you need to learn the ins and out of who your brother and your sister is.
Yeah. Your life
That's
is gonna have to shift.
right.
Mhm. Okay, so I need some insight because this makes me think of an interesting discussion I had with a few peers of mine. There's two trains of thoughts, and I'm a person from a big family. So some people think smaller families are better for children. I'm a historian. When I mean historian, I mean like thousands of years ago. I like studying, I like researching, I like reading things up. I think emotionally, spiritually balanced, we were better off when we had multiple generations in the home growing up together and everyone interacted with each other. And I think a hardship now in families is like you said, a lot of us don't know each other anymore.
Mhm.
So, what is your insight? What do you feel? Or do you feel both can work? A small family versus a bigger family, family living together, a family not living together. Do these things help prepare for caretaking later on in life?
I think that we're the blueprint,
Okay.
that we're the blueprint, and we show people how to care for other people, right?
Mm.
Because what you're saying is that when my children were younger, we did a lot of on our own. We did a lot of helping other people, right?
Mhm.
We would be a part of the church, and we would go out and we would do the Christmas boxes. We would do the different things, and we would help people in our community. So, with that being said, you show your children how to treat other people. Because my son, I think my son is about your age. My youngest son, he's a nurse, and that helped with the capacity of how his grandmother, myself, and other people taught how to care for people. You know, so we teach that. I've also been in families where they didn't know how to. The socialization was not there. The empathy was not there, the compassion was not there. But it's how people are raised. You know,
Mm,
that's the point of it. But when you surround yourself with people that are givers, instead of takers, that molds that individual mind. You say, we do this. You have to be present in the lives of your family, right? Because we know grandmama, mama, all of those, that helped us to see what needed to be done. And we're taking all this in and we're processing it, right? So with big families as well as in small families, and I've seen both, there's
mhm,
good, bad, and ugly,
mhm,
right? And there's no racial discrepancy in that. But
mhm.
that's across the board, good, bad, ugly. But it's the socialization that we have to teach the younger people because they are so detached. They have no social skills. They have no social cues on what is
Mm,
appropriate and what's not appropriate. you know so you see teenagers that are really cruel to older people. you know
yeah,
so why are you not picking up on the social cues? Where is the dignity and respect that we had 20, 30 years ago? Where's that?
mhm,
If nobody is nurturing that, and there's nobody's bringing that back, and nobody's saying you can't do that, you need to lower your tone. You need to, whatever.
yeah,
We have to start at that blueprint of, you know, how can I help you? What do you need done? But it's the
yeah,
social cues and the detachment that the younger people have. There's no compassion. There's no empathy. We have to
yeah,
start fresh. We have to reteach them, reintroduce them to humanity.
yeah. I agree. That feels like it's something deeply rooted, especially speaking for like myself and my generation. And I'm 37, so we've seen both sides of the world. We've lived in life without technology, and now technology is trying to run the world.
Right,
So we've had to decide, like, okay, does this work? Does that work? Where do I stand here? But I fully agree with you. Even my oldest son once told me he wants to get into medicine, like, and that made me very proud, very happy, because like that's what I show him, not just how I show up for people, but like you said, also my boundaries. How
right,
like he don't hear people talk to me a certain way. He never see people yelling at me. You know what I mean? He hears people asking me, "Hey, would you like to go along?" Nah, hey, you gotta go here. Like,
right, right,
and all of that to me is your diet. It's not just what you eat; it's what you watch, what you listen to, what you read, how people talk to you, how you address situations, your
right,
response if it's angry or understanding. And yeah, yeah, you saying everything, and I can see it in real time of how this affects because family is a difficult subject this day and age.
right.
I used to play basketball, like at a high level. When I got hurt, I went into coaching, and I say this with love, but like the parents got me out of coaching. And I realized a lot of parents were babysitting their kids or dropping them off at the gym. I can't find you. You know what I mean? This kid looked like he ain't ate in 2 days.
Oh my
And what
God.
I remember as a child was our neighbors could reprimand us. Your
Right,
neighbor could be like, "Your mom, do your mama know you doing that? Your mama know you ain't ate today."
right, right,
You know what I mean? And that I see that missing. My generation hasn't done really well of picking up, that buck. And I think because a lot of people who didn't have a sense of caretaking has two sides of the story. They heard, "Oh, well, y'all feared Big Mama or y'all respected her." For me, I respected her. And
right,
I learned how to cook with my grandmothers and aunts. And they taught me about ironing clothes. I didn't care about that.
right,
They
right,
reminded me, "Hey, you ain't been in the shower in 2 days." I didn't care about that. But as a child, I didn't understand. I was being cared for by a village of people. I didn't just leave it to one person or two people.
right.
Everybody made sure you ate. Everybody said, "Street lights coming on. You got somewhere to be?
Okay.
Could you be on the corner?" I don't know these kids, but I know you. I call your mama right now. She was just over here
Right.
earlier. And I don't see that as much in the world today. I think a lot of people are afraid.
They are. It's a whole different world, you know.
Yeah,
And people my age and older are saying, "This is a different world. This is not what I expected." And you
yeah.
just, where before, like you were saying, before you could reprimand, now you can't because you don't know the black bowl of
Mm-hmm.
the consequence of what's coming. So now people aren't, they're saying, they're, looking, and they want to say something, but you can't. You can't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that when we come back to caregiving, as far as family, as far as caring for neighbors, as far as, you know, we're in this all together, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So when we come back to the art of caregiving, that's a good book. I need to write that. But the art of
Please.
caregiving, right? This is an
Mm-hmm.
art, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It's the compassion and the empathy for humanity, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And who is humanity? Everybody,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, and we have to have that human side of us to show up every time.
Yeah. I think that's how we do show for each other. I have to see you as being a part of my life. I've had panels with, angry people because I feel like there's more people in the world without children than with children. So a lot of people are angry, why do you let your kids do that? What does that have to do with me? In 10 years, if my kids work at a Foot Locker and you want to get some shoes, that got everything to do with you. So help me. You see, I need help. Help me. Don't criticize me. This is your problem potentially one day. He could be the person trying to break in your car. Is it still your problem?
Right,
You
right,
know what I mean? And I think it just has to be so much healing that takes place because a lot of what I have to tell our generation is we're still carrying trauma from 7 generations ago
right,
because
right,
y'all only had y'all's lifetime. Y'all couldn't fix everything that happened before you, just like we can't. You know what I mean? So sometimes I agree. You got to show up in love for people because I gave you trauma. I brought you into this world. You know what I mean? And I told you, yeah, just go to college and things will be all right. Get married, it'll be great. Have kids, nothing can go wrong. So yeah, that was it for me. For a while, there was resentment, and then when I started to heal, I realized, people can only do their best. You can only show up for me in your capacity. I can't expect for you to save my life. I can't expect for you to get rid of my bad days.
right,
Why do I see this as a bad day? Who told me this was a bad day?
right.
You know?
Mhm.
So, it's yeah, you can command a room. It's your connection, your poise, and I want to see this more in the forefront. This is the stuff I tell people. AI can't do this. Technology can't do this.
Right, right,
You know what I mean? That's your gift, and I'm glad you were able to share that with us today. I'm glad we got to hear a little more about you, hear about your book, and we have a whole new perception on caregiving and caretaking as well. So is there anything that you want to leave the people at home with? Anything, any words, any quotes, any advice?
the advice that I have, that if you are a caregiver, whether you're a mom, whether you are taking care of your parents, whatever that looks like for you, always remember the essence of the person. Always. Don't disregard them at all, that their likes, their dislikes, who they were, you know. So if we can dive into the essence of the person, never forget who they are, that would help you with your journey on your caregiving journey, because there's bad days, like you said, but if we remember the essence of who I'm taking care of, this is my daddy, and I remember how he cared for me. This is my mama. I know how she loves me, you know. That'll help that day get a whole lot better, because it's the essence of who they were with you and who they are now. That person is still there, you know.
Hmm.
You may have to look a little deeper, may look a little harder, but they're there. And the love and everything that they have for you is still there.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. I hope we were able to give you your flowers. We're excited that we got to sit down and have this conversation because, yeah, we got a lot to think about.
Yeah, we do.
On that note, everybody, make sure y'all are following us both. Where can they follow you? Where can they find your book?
The book you can Caregiving 101, huh? And there's also Caregiving 102, Hands and Feet. It's available on Amazon. And you can follow me on Facebook. And I also have a YouTube channel, Coach Priscilla B.
Okay, awesome. We all will see links as well on the goodlifebookstore.com showing up soon for Miss Priscilla. Thank you, thank you, thank you again for making time for this and showing up and being your amazing self in this world. We need that energy. So thank
Thank
you.
you.
You're so welcome. All right, everybody. Make sure y'all having these conversations. Make sure you're reading. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Peace. We'll see y'all another time.